backdrop of Bangor, Maine.
Oh, I know.
Downtown metropolis. Like,
Jesus.
what do we
So
have?
busy
15.
out there.
I know. It's like, did you find a parking spot? Okay,
Barely.
yeah, it's hey,
snowbank,
I guess that's comes with living in a big city,
Yeah.
right? You got the pros and cons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
So we're back.
Wow. Yes, we're back. And actually, I was thinking about the next topic, and it kind of, I wasn't really going to get into too much personal depth on it, but,
Okay.
but I kind of changed my mind when I was thinking about it because, I'm still struggling with this a lot.
Okay.
And it's something, I'm trying to get better at, but it's tell the fucking truth. Tell the truth. I don't know if it's just, as guys, like just growing up, you just got to posture. You got to be, to be the man, you got to show that you're the strong guy, you're competing, You're winning. I mean, there's always constant competition. And I think, and just, honestly being raised by maybe, an absolutely wonderful man, but one that maybe wasn't so good at communicating his real thoughts, right? Real feelings, real emotion. So that's one thing that like is a major struggle for me as both a father and a husband is telling the truth. And for me, this is how I feel. And so, yeah, I'm working on it, struggling through it. I think I've gotten a lot better. But again, I still have those situations where, like Steph and I will have this kind of situation where there'll be a disconnect, whether it's and typically it's all the same. It's raising the kids, or there's a thought there, or, baggage from my past or whatever, or things that she's carrying. And so they trigger you, and those triggers end up creating this anxiety and anger. You don't know why, like something happened, like they said something, it hurt my feelings, and it's just like all of a sudden you close down and you walk away, and instead of just addressing it, like, hey, Stephanie, when you said that, it just hurt my feelings. I really, instead of all of a sudden a day and a half later, you guys have just created a little bit more distance, and it was unnecessary. So I don't know. I'm just
let it build up a little bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of like one of those things where, I'm kind of working on. I talk to other guys, and it's like it's kind of I don't think we've been given the tools necessary to really be able to be vulnerable. So what happens is, you want this deeper connection with your spouse. But how do you have it when you can't even share stuff with your spouse? Because again, the connection is through sharing your deepest, most inner thoughts that you should be sharing with the person you've decided to share your life with,
right,
or your significant other in your case. But how do you have those deeper connections if you if you're only sharing part of you with them, the good and the bad, the dark and the light? Because there's dark. We all have dark and light. Like, I get fucking angry, but but we are men. We get angry.
Yeah.
And it's okay, but expressing it, I think, is the challenge.
Yeah. I think it goes back to fear and ego. It's hard to tell the truth sometimes. It's scary to tell the truth. Especially if someone has hurt your feelings and you're expressing that to someone, that's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to hear it too.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that's so important. I think it's important to tell the truth to yourself. Don't lie to your own self in your own head about what you're doing. Kind of having a rose-colored glasses to yourself, but also onto the world and to others. And I think it's hard. And I think it's dealing with fear and ego. Yeah. I think it almost always can go back to fear and ego.
Yeah.
And learning how to deal with those two things and juggle them. And I think it's important both in a relationship and at work too. It's fully communicating things, because I find that every time we have tough conversations, regardless of the situation, I always feel better after, and the situation is always better after.
Most definitely, it is, because again, that's a great example of we're talking about the same thing at work, okay? And there's so many times that people will just, like, instead of me addressing you, Zach, like, hey, if you could just like, we were sharing a desk and your lunch is kind of sitting there, instead of me just saying, hey, Zach, listen, it's just something that bothers me. I'm just hoping that we can get through it. We go and we bitch, we complain, we sabotage shit. We with the passive aggressive stuff comes out, and it's like,
we make a simple situation a lot worse.
Yes,
we make a simple confrontation.
Yes,
so much
big
worse.
Big time,
so much worse. And I think that's huge now in learning how to communicate with other people professionally and on a social level.
Right,
is learning how to. Not have resentment, not have passive aggressiveness. Because like if you have that same situation, like you said, and you go to your boss, and then your boss talks to him, and now how does that person feel? Oh, everyone's talking about me behind my back.
Right.
Well, that doesn't feel awesome.
How did that make a deeper connection with that individual? Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Instead of in an event, and we know at the end of the day, you're gonna have that. The way it was supposed to happen originally is going to end up how it ends up being anyway.
Right.
It always ends up going back to, all right, Phil, we're going to have to talk.
Right.
Like your lunch stinks.
Inevitably, the conversation is going to happen,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And it's the same thing with in a relationship.
Yeah.
That's when it ends, is when like that conversation finally came out about 6 months too late, 6 years too late.
Yes.
It's like that's when relationships tend to fall apart. It's like when you could have just said it right in that moment.
Right.
Of like,
I
hate the way you fold my t-shirts.
Right. Period.
I hate it.
You can't fold. No, hey man, that's real shit.
Let me do it. I'm gonna fold the
t-shirts. That's real shit. Okay, man. I can learn this shit. What do you fold it twice 11? I got it. You know, like, and you know, as you're married, or quite frankly, if you're with someone in a long-term relationship, that is in essence. I mean, it's so wonderful, but so difficult in the same way, because how else do we have to look in the mirror and work on being more loving, work on being more accepting, work on, you know, all those things. And again, it's a lot to do with our own selves too. Yeah. I mean, most of it is just a reflection. If I get angry at her, it's really just because I'm angry at myself. I have my own guilt and shame that I deal with. Yeah. You know, and so, working through that and being more forgiving with yourself, you know, is really, I think, the biggest thing that helps. But yeah, it's tough, man. That's one of the things that I feel like, a lot of guys deal with that. And then inevitably, like you said, I mean, you hold on to the lies so long, that again, it's the rampant rate of divorce. What's the divorce rate now? It's like it used to be when I was growing up, it was like 50-50. Now it's like 70% of people get divorced, and really that's fundamentally it boils down to communication and openness and love and respect.
Our inability to have confrontation. In a good way.
Exactly.
What other things do you think contribute to that? Because I always found that fascinating, because for me, I don't have an experience. I've never been married. I've never been divorced, obviously. So that's something I don't really have direct experience with, but in seeing and conversing with a lot of people, especially being a massage therapist, being a personal trainer, a lot of people tend to tell me maybe a little too much. Most
definitely. Oh yeah.
Right. And I find a lot of the times, and I can see this in just relationships in general. Yeah. And this isn't a bad thing. Like, I don't necessarily think breakups, divorce is a bad thing. I think it's the opposite. I think you staying with someone that you don't actually want to be with for long periods of time is 1,000 times worse.
Yeah, I think
1,000 times worse.
Honestly, I agree with you. I think there is a balance. I mean, I think the reality is that there is a tough balance there, and by that I mean, like, if it is an absolute nightmare, and you just and one person is not looking to improve with the commitment level that the other person is, you can't force that, right? So all you can do is give 100% of yourself to that individual. And then if you walk away, you can later on say, I gave 100%. I gave everything. I was ultra vulnerable. I told them how I felt. I was loving, but it just, I couldn't get anywhere with it. So then, you owe it to yourself then to set your own boundaries and say, listen, this is, you got to move on. You got to find someone that appreciates the gifts that you bring, you know?
Right. And you're not going to find that one person, but I think what you can do is, like, I feel like there's I don't necessarily think there's the one
Agreed.
one out there. I think there are ones that are a lot better than others, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think
Most
okay, so
definitely.
now we're in that situation where you feel like you're with the one, you're married or not, or getting ready to be married.
Right.
I think the next step is learning how to speak up for yourself and confront things, but also let some shit go, dude.
Yeah.
Like I see that in previous jobs.
Yeah.
Like, and I've seen that in groups of friends, and I've seen that in relationships, and I've done it myself where it's like, really? Like that's what you're concerned with is the way she, like how soon she puts her blinker on?
Right.
Like,
no,
dude,
I agree.
like,
I totally
and
agree.
I feel like when things like that happen, when you have that moment of anger, like, oh God, like why does she have to turn her blinker on a mile before she turns? Okay. Why are you feeling like that? Is it really about
now
the
that's
blinker?
the question. See,
Or is
now
it
you're
really
on to
something in you?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Because there's something probably that you're pissed off about that you're projecting onto this
Most
person
definitely.
that doesn't deserve it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
You're angry, you're resentful. Maybe you had a fucking bad day at Starbucks and you had a cold coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And again, instead of being honest with that person, hey, this coffee's cold. Can I have a hot one?
Yes.
You take the cold coffee,
you
you
get
suck
pissed
it
off.
down, you dump it out in the parking lot, and then you fucking yell at your wife.
and then you go do it, and then you go on Yelp and you go like, this place fucking sucks.
Exactly.
You know, like, fuck you.
Hey man,
like
just
really?
get a
that
hot
person's
coffee.
just trying to work too. But it's true. Like learn.
Oh,
you gotta learn.
It's funny though.
To put the line down of
Yeah.
what you are willing to deal with. And I don't like the way I said that, but I'll just leave it. Deal with and what you're willing to not.
Yeah.
So, yes, if you want kids and your wife does not want kids, and this has been a conversation that's had that unfortunately there's some things that like that this has been my dream as a father. That's something that you can't just let go, and
Yeah.
you got to know for you.
Most definitely.
It's like or cigarettes, this.
If it's keeping you up at night, Zach,
exactly,
you gotta
go. But if it's the way she grinds the coffee machine, or like
Yeah.
it's the coffee she drinks,
Yeah.
or if it's like something like she likes to read Harry Potter for the 8th time through.
Right.
It's like, is it really affecting your life?
Right.
Is it consuming your? Is it changing anything? No.
No.
If that answer's no for the most part, then you gotta let that shit
No,
go.
I'm with you, 100%.
gotta let it go.
100%. I think I gotta say though, as time progresses, I find, the reality is when you get to those points where and it happens on both sides. Like, listen, like when you're married, I've been married for 15 years.
Yeah.
And so there are highs and lows in the relationship of marriage because it's dynamic. We're both growing at different rates. We're both having challenges at different times. Sometimes you have challenges at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when that's happening, you're both on, maybe in some pretty rocky areas. And so when the tide is low, the rocks show, right?
Yeah.
And so it's good and bad. I mean, the rocks are showing, so it gives you an opportunity to address some things maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that when you're nitpicking at each other and every movement is bothering you, there's like you said, there's deeper issues. You haven't addressed some concerns.
Yeah.
Either there's resentment going on, there's still some hurt from the past that you need to sit down, walk through with respect and love. And let's be honest, guys, and not so much women. Women are different, but I will tell you from my perspective, I mean, guys need to have sex like often. And I'm not just
No,
putting that
it's
out
true.
there,
No,
but that is like,
it's true.
So the anxiety level for a guy after 2 days or 3 days or whatever, and guys are different, but after 2 days of not having sex, especially if you love and you are so physically attracted to your spouse or your girlfriend, when they're walking by and you have this instinct that you want to just grab them and make love to them.
Yeah.
And if there's like all of a sudden, if that becomes a tool in the game,
Right.
if that becomes like, no, you can, but, or, well, what happened here? Or no, not today. And then maybe some rejection starts. And then,
Right.
and then that's when you start to have the complication. And then it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the container. When you start to get turned down as a man, or you start to get, and I'm not saying like, listen, I'm just saying in general, a lot of times it's on us because the woman's not getting their needs filled. So how do we expect to come and just take withdrawals all the time?
Exactly. Yeah. Are you having that conversation?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
So I think okay, you have that
That's
situation where it's been a week, 2 weeks, a month since you've had sex, and you want it every 3 days, every day.
Right.
Let's get real.
But exactly.
let's say that compromise is like every third day. It's like that's something that I need.
Exactly.
You haven't communicated that to her, and now you're holding resentment for something that she doesn't even know exists.
Exactly.
She might have an idea that maybe her needs aren't like that.
Right.
She's a woman. She's different. She's got her own set of individual needs. If she doesn't need that, and she doesn't know that you do,
then shame on you.
Exactly. Who are you to then hold other things against her? Like you're treating her like shit because you haven't told her that.
Exactly.
Okay? And so have that conversation. And if she's not okay with that, then that's just another deeper conversation you're going to have, and it's going to suck.
It is.
But you're going to have to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important.
It is.
Because I feel like a lot of fights are what you're actually fighting about isn't being said.
Right.
You're fighting about dinner. But in reality, you're fighting because you're pissed off that we haven't had sex in 2 weeks. She's fighting because you haven't,
it's
spent
expectations.
any quality time. When's the last time you asked her a question?
Yeah.
Like, when's the last time you delved
sat
deep?
on my island at the island and actually expressed full presence with me?
Yes, exactly.
And not with your phone, not with your show me that you care about my life and what's going on. And vice versa. That's what we care about.
She has needs too.
Yeah, that's it's true.
That.
It's so true. I am so guilty here, and that because I can talk about this shit, Zach, because I guilty as
absolutely.
charged. You know what I mean? Absolutely. And so I am a definite work in progress, and I think I have come some distance. There's a long way to go, but again, and hey, 43, married 15 years. So there's something right. I mean, I love this girl to the moon and back. She's wonderful. We just, hey, it's dynamic, and we're doing the the work that it takes to kind of get through some of this shit. But and I put that out there honestly. Listen, we might have 1 or 2 listeners to this, so I got to be cautious of what I'm putting out there in the market. But the reality is, it is something that so many men deal with, and what happens is, and I hear it a lot, and that is that what happens is the breakdown starts, right? So you like you said, hey, hon, we just need to have just a sit down conversation in the right time. You're relaxed, you're in bed, you're chilling, you're reading a book, not like when there's anxiety in the morning and kids are going to school. Hey, I'm not having sex enough. You're not fucking me enough.
Yeah.
So you have the right time, you sit, you talk, hey, this is just how my body works. I'm so attracted to you. I love you. I feel like maybe we can put something in the calendar, at least midweek. So at least sometime in the midweek, we find ways to connect. Cause inevitably what happens is the woman, when you do connect, even though it's not necessarily a big driver from their perspective, afterwards there is a level of connection that they feel with you and vice versa that is good for both sides, right? And so and just about communicating it and then actually following through. But if you don't do it,
exactly. I think I have
bad,
because I've had similar situations, and I think the issue that I have with it, so I'm assuming that other people have had the same issue, is this taboo feeling about sex.
Right. I
almost feel guilty about how often I want to have sex. I felt it back when I was 16 years old, when shit was brewing, and even now at 25, and I've especially noticed it as being really active. Like the minute I started doing CrossFit or fitness in general more often, I found that my need was
libido
a lot more.
Was higher,
way higher,
yes.
Significantly higher. And I looked at it shamefully.
Same.
I'm like shame on me to want this so much.
Come on.
And I feel like we got to take that pressure off.
You know what, you bring up such a great point. I hope that you sharing that, I think is huge, because the reality is that is what a lot of guys, and I can tell you, I am the same. I've been I have so much shame associated with if you didn't want to do it all the time and do it. So all of a sudden, I'm suppressing my own natural emotions to be physically attracted. So instead of maybe my woman walks by, or my wife, I am caveman. Yeah. But my wife walks by and she's kind of getting ready for the day. Maybe she's got her G-string on. like I'm, look away, or like, why wouldn't I just like, hun, you look absolutely phenomenal, beautiful, or, it's just, there's all these, like, all of a sudden I'm kind of suppressing my feelings or suppressing what I would normally say. And I think that's part of it, because I'm shameful for the fact that I maybe want to have sex more often than quote unquote normal men. Phil, well, all my girlfriends, they like their husbands want to have sex. They like once a week. I think you're lucky to have it like 1.25 times a week.
What's the 2.5? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think I just agreed with her, Zach. Yeah. I said, okay, well, it's better. Yeah, I'll take 1.25.
Right.
But yeah, it's yeah. So I think we need to, and quite frankly, I think that really this is not only a message for other guys, but it's a message for women, that the reality is, like, there are these needs, and as soon as you start suppressing or shame, not necessarily on purpose, but shaming or like, don't, and by all means, you do not, and we've had this conversation, we don't want you to do anything you don't want to do, because I'll tell you what,
sure,
I'd rather masturbate any day of the week than have you not
checking the box,
checking the box and not really being in the experience. And there's going to be times when that happens out of love, and you're still with me, but you're not, it's just not your best time, if you will. But if it's this guy, Garrett basically would say, if it's vaginal masturbation, that doesn't sit well with me. I mean, it upsets me later in the day. I don't feel good about it, about the connection. I don't know. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't want that. So you're just gonna have to learn what our limits are and what's going to be acceptable, know. And at that point, then you're just gonna have to realize that, you're gonna have to kind of take care of things on your own, and that's a lot better. I'd rather do that than be upset.
Correct. Oh, right? Yeah, for sure.
Or find other ways to get an outlet.
Yes.
But there's only so much.
I know.
Because especially, that's something I would say generally is like, if you are having what you would consider, I don't like this way of saying it, but if you have a abnormally high libido, let's say abnormally high, are you working out?
Right.
Are you expressing yourself as a man, as a person in general? Maybe check those boxes first. But then even still, you work out 6 days a week, you're fulfilled in your job, and it's still there, then then we need to figure out a solution, have the conversation. If we realize that, hey, she doesn't feel that enough, and it ends up turning into that vaginal masturbation, which I love that term, like you just said. I think that's when you have to realize that you're going to have to make
choices. Yes.
You're going to have to make choices.
Agreed.
And I think that's a hard conversation to have with yourself, on a microphone with another person, and with your spouse.
Big time.
I think it's tough, but I think you have to have those conversations. I think we have to. I think the more we do it, the more it won't be so awkward, and the more the taboo will get taken away from it. Because it's a realistic thing.
It is.
It's a part of life, and it's a very important part of life. And I think it's a really important part of a relationship.
It is. It's like most definitely.
If sex isn't fulfilling or it's not happening enough, like that's a big issue. Like,
it's huge.
That's something needs to happen, and you need to have that conversation.
Yeah. If you're fighting about something, what is it? It's money, sex, or kids. I mean, and so the sex part it's huge, and a lot of people gloss over it like it's going to go away.
Right.
And the only time it goes away, let's be honest, Zach, I mean, like, that's why a lot of men, basically, they don't address it. They don't communicate. Both sides aren't really fully transparent in how they feel and what they experience, and what their challenges are. And then they think that the solution is outside the marriage, and it never is. It never is outside the marriage.
I think the tough conversation you need to have with yourself first is, okay, your wife doesn't want to have sex with you as much as you'd like. Why? So her needs being met, we talked about that.
Yeah. Ask her.
I think it's always like, we're always thinking about it like, oh, I've lost you. I'm not as attracted to you anymore. Let's say that. Maybe she's not as attracted to you anymore. Maybe what are you doing wrong?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
it's true.
How long have you guys been in a relationship? How are you trying as hard as you were?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Think back on, obviously, if you're in a relationship to the point where you're not having sex enough, you've been together long enough. Think back to when you were having sex enough. Because at some point, I'd hope that you were having more sex than you are now currently. What were you doing then? I bet you were treating her differently,
Yep.
talking to her a lot more,
Yep.
trying a lot harder,
Yep.
looking a lot better in terms of like maybe you were dressing up, maybe like instead of taking her out to dinner in your sweatpants and a t-shirt, maybe you were wearing a nice shirt and or a suit or a whatever, had your blazer on.
Maybe you had some of the cologne on, you know what I mean?
When's the last time you put that on?
Right.
How many times have you forgotten your deodorant recently? You know what I mean? Like little things like that.
It is. No, you bring up a good point.
Because
that is
when
so
you
true.
first went, think about like, and I'm not trying to set these expectations that are really high, but like maybe
date your wife, basically. You got to date her.
75% of the way you acted on the first date, the first time you had sex, act 50%, 25% closer to that than where you're at now.
Yeah.
I think you'd find success.
I think you're going to move it in the right direction for sure.
Moving the needle towards where you want it to be. Correct. And not just for sex. Again, that goes back to the same mindset of that if you're only doing it for sex, it's like the same reason why you're picking up trash for someone else to look at you.
You got it.
You need to look into yourself and what are you doing things for?
No,
there could be deeper issues there.
I totally agree. Yeah.
I actually like that concept of thinking of like 75%. And that goes for everything. Something my dad told me was just be willing to do 25, 50, 75% more than everyone else. Even 25% more than the other person, you're going to win.
And you're going to win.
Because there's a lot of people out there not giving even 50% of what they're capable. So if you're giving 25% more than them, you're doing all right.
Yeah. No.
So that's in everything.
Yeah. I agree. Well, that's cool, man. I wasn't going to dive into the like being truthful and all that, but I think we can expand on that in future chats. Sure. But I think it's a good way to start the conversation, and hopefully some people got some value out of today. And if you did, we're going to post these podcasts at my website. It's www.canuck-investments.com. Someone stole the Canuck Investments URL, so I had to add a hyphen in there. So, and then feel free to email me at Philip with 1L Henry at Canuck-investments.com. I respond to everybody, and love to hear your input on our discussion today, and look forward to doing more.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks for sitting down with me. This is awesome.
Take care.
More coming soon.
Thanks. Yeah.